Arguing all the time. Hello everyone, myself and my wife are having a few problems at the moment. We've been arguing quite a bit recently. And she keeps threatening divorce. We've been married for 3 years, and we have 2 wonderful boys. Age 2 and 13 weeks. A bit of background. She's self-employed, and so is back at work already. Which isn't helping matters. She's off Monday and Wednesday with the boys, and works Tuesday, Thursday and Friday afternoons, and Saturday all day. I work full-time through the week. She also has another business which she works on in the evenings. Arguments start over the stupidest things. She could be stressing out about the printer not working, or I've left a cup out or something. And then all of a sudden, it's World War III. And things I did years ago get brought into it, how I don't show her any affection, even though when I do, she pushes me away. I don't support her emotionally. And I don't do enough around the house. I get home from work about 5:30 p.m. I spend an hour with the eldest and then get him ready for bed and do the bedtime thing with him. Then I come down and sort out dinner. Then we get the baby fed and up to bed by about 8 p.m., by which time I then tidy up the mess the boys have left, do the dishes and stuff while she works. This takes us to about 9 p.m. By which time, all I want to do is crash out and relax for a bit. On a Saturday, I have the boys, and I try to do some housework, the hoovering, the floors, and generally tidy up. But I want to spend my time when I'm not at work with my sons, not fobbing them off in front of the phone while I clean up for a couple of hours. When my wife is off on a Monday and a Wednesday, she at least gets to take them to a play area with her friends and their kids. I miss out on all that. She's always complaining about things I've not done. I don't feel as though I've got a say in what I do. Everything is on her terms. I just roll with it for an easy life, but at the moment, it's anything but easy. I'm in the wrong for everything and anything. Just yesterday, the sink leaked a little into the cupboard below. She rang me up ranting at me that I should have sorted it by now. It's happened once before. A few weeks ago, but not since. And how I've ruined her day now. She lets things get to her so easily, and it blows up into a major row, where she batters me with verbal abuse. And I try and proclaim my innocence. And then I just end up apologizing, even if I don't think I've done anything wrong, just to try and calm the situation. This is happening daily now. I've tried to talk to her about postnatal depression, but she says it's me that's the problem, not the kids. She refuses to talk to her health visitor, saying it should be me who makes it better, but that I am incapable, and a waste of space as a husband. I feel as though I am losing her, but I'm also losing myself. I don't go out anywhere, don't see my friends much, and I feel as though I'm an employee rather than a husband, except an employee wouldn't get spoken to like I do sometimes. Granted, she's not out all the time either, but at least she gets to take the kids out and see her friends while she does it. I can't even sit down and watch the football for a couple of hours without getting abuse. We don't have fun anymore. We don't go anywhere as a couple. We're literally just mommy and daddy. We've not been intimate for a while now, mainly because of the pregnancy. And she now thinks that I don't find her attractive anymore as I don't initiate anything. The thing is, with a newborn baby, we're up and down all night, so one of us inevitably ends up falling asleep downstairs. So when we go to bed, it's usually to sleep. I do find my wife attractive, and I do want to be intimate, but when I do try and do little affectionate things, she reckons it's forced and I'm only doing it because she told me to do it. I'm not perfect by any stretch, I'm forgetful, and I'm like any bloke in that I just don't think about things the way she does. But to get the abuse I sometimes get, and the threat of divorce every time we argue, is just bringing my confidence and self-esteem right down. And I wonder now if she's right, that I am a waste of space. And I'm not a good husband, and she'd be better off without me. I'm living a hell right now that I can see ending in one way. Me, on my own, without my kids and my wife, which to me is the worst thing I can ever envisage happening to me, as I love my family more than anything. What can I do to rescue my marriage before I lose everything I hold dear? It's not an evening job as such, it's her primary business. She has her own production company, producing wedding DVDs, sole trader. And as a partnership she runs a bridal studio. My wages just about cover the main expenses. Mortgages, loan repayments, etc. But her money is really for the nicer things, taking the boys out on a Sunday, going for days out, eating out. We are also having a lot of work done on the house, so there's that to pay for as well. We have 3 properties, 1 which we live in, and 2 which we rent out. I am thinking of selling one of them, and using the profit to pay off loans and other expenses, so she can select whether to take on a job or not. We do need to have bedroom time, it's been tiring with a newborn to look after. And she's been feeding the baby too. Now he's on bottles, we can start to look about having a night or 2 to ourselves away from the house. and the temptation to just sit and vegetate in front of the TV, ignoring each other pretty much. I'm going to make every effort to make this happen, because the alternative isn't even worth thinking about. Comments. Sounds like wife is going through very emotional moody, almost PDD. When she refuses to talk to health advisor. She's burying her head in the sand. Need to sit down and talk with her calmly. Tell her your feelings about the housework, etc. You need to come up with lists of when and what each person is responsible for in chores. Make sure the lists look comparable and fair. Say that it is needed for sanity in the marriage. If she can't agree to both of you having set chores, set days to do dishes, laundry, etc., then tell her maybe you need a trial separation. Since she's so gung-ho on threatening divorce at each fight, make sure you're very calm when saying all this. Tell her how it hurts, that she does not talk through things fairly with you and just screams divorce each time. I have a feeling she says that, only because she knows you don't want it, not because she really does. Tell her you try to hug or comfort her when she's upset, but obviously you're not meeting her needs. You need her to tell you how she wants it handled. Does she want you to leave and go for a walk when she's like that? Or would she rather have a hug? If so, then she's got to acknowledge it at the time, that you are trying to make her feel better. It sounds like it will be very frustrating for a while, but hang in there. With several calm, one-on-one discussions about responsibilities, reactions, chores, and showing emotions, you two can probably work things out after a while. If in 2 months it's still the same, still fighting, I'd really suggest marriage counseling. If she refuses, it might be time to think about packing the bags. Oh, and you are not worthless as a husband. Sounds like she is feeling that she is worthless as a mother. Work, wife, pick any that apply. And she is externalizing it onto you. Trying to work with babies is tough. I'm home now, but I once went back to work when I had a 13-week-old and a 2-year-old. Despite my best efforts, my husband got the brunt of my frustration. I was fat, stressed, overwhelmed, had a demanding career and 2 babies to care for plus a house. I have had PPD and that wasn't my problem this time, it was just superwoman syndrome. I was trying to do everything, felt like a failure at it all. That's where your wife is at. In a nutshell, she's doing too much. Period. End of story. OP responds. Last night was the worst night yet. Almost a complete breakdown of our marriage. We were getting on with things, and then she received an email from a client who was causing her a few problems, basically angling for compensation when it's not warranted. This email really upset her, and I tried to tell her not to worry. But she started sobbing uncontrollably, screaming like a banshee into a pillow, threw her phone at the wall, and then rounded on me again. The upshot of this, in brief, is that 1. She doesn't love me. 2. We're not compatible because I don't know how to bring her up when she's down. 3. I'm a crappy husband. 4. I'm a crappy dad who can't be trusted alone with my kids. 5. Things with her ex were better, even though he was a waster with no ambition. At least she could rely on him for support. 6. I don't show her any affection. I was understandably upset with this outburst, and she flew at me again, saying I was defeatist and wallowing in my own pity. But how else am I expected to react when told the things she said to me? I went out for a walk for an hour or so, hoping she'd calm down, but I got back and laid it all out for her. I want to make it work. I love her. I support her and I want her and only her. Her response: whatever, I don't want it to work. I've had enough. We went to bed, in the same bed, but she was asleep when I got upstairs. I held her and cried myself to sleep. I think she was awake, but pretended to be asleep. This morning, we woke up, and I gave her a hug. She didn't push me away, which I took as a good sign. She didn't apologize for anything though, but did say she'd just started on her first period since having the baby. Her first in a year. But didn't use this as an excuse for her outburst last night. I gave her a few hugs and kisses, and when she dropped me off at work this morning, I told her I loved her. And she said, "Love you too." 1 minute we're fine, then something happens that isn't even to do with anything I've done, and suddenly we're over. Finished. I'm a waste of space. It's really draining me mentally, and I'm tired of feeling like this all the time. I just don't know what to do. Comments. I'm thinking maybe she might need you to take a more controlling stance. Sounds like she is losing control of herself, mind, emotions, life, and she is wanting a shining knight to swoop in, control everything, make all her perceived problems disappear, and then kill the knight that doesn't solve her problems the way she wants it done, without ever communicating her expectations. She is far down enough in emotions that she cannot pull herself out of it. She is expecting you to make her feel better about everything. Not really fair, especially since she refuses to talk to a doc about it. She is not taking responsibility for herself, for her outbursts, for her depression. Sounds like she is expecting you to take responsibility for everything, and then when she doesn't feel great immediately she blames you for everything. Don't let her do this. Forget the waiting time. She needs counseling now. The going out together and trying to talk calmly about some problems might work. If she was willing to participate. She is not, might say so, but really, she is being inflexible about it. Demand that she gets some help from a doctor. There might be a short-term med she can take to stabilize her mood, outbursts. Demand it, then, walk away from any negative fight or complaining episode. If she screams that you always leave, tell her you are willing to stay and calmly talk about what's going on, or the problem, but once she is back to emotionally fighting, you will walk away, and then do it. Well, that all sounds good in theory anyway. I think counseling for her would be a first step to a long road she needs to take. It seems to me that she is having postpartum depression coupled with high stress. Now with the information that she is starting her cycle, it just adds the perfect storm. I myself just had an argument last night. My fiancé was in a bad mood and had made little quips to me that were a little hateful. I blew it off because of her mood and nothing would be gained by saying anything at the time. Later she said something to me very hateful, and I finally got upset. I got up and left to avoid the argument. She deemed it running away. Now she is not sure about us. I guess what I am saying is I empathize with you, brother. I feel my relationship is worth fighting for, and that's what I'm going to do. If you value yours and feel it's worth it, then you need to fight tooth and nail to keep it. No fight is without injury and heartache. If you can't take any more, then it's time to get out. Good luck, brother. Half a year later. So, my wife is on the verge of wanting a divorce. I've completely eroded her trust by lying about finances ... but not in a lie that I'm going out spending on booze or gambling. Or even just going to the pub with my friends. It's purely that I'm trying to make ends meet month to month. My wife works really hard, has 2 businesses, which although takes up a lot of her time, doesn't provide a regular wage. Therefore, it's left to my wage to cover everything: debts, mortgage, bills, spends, food, shopping, petrol, taking our 3 young kids out, etc. Last year, I arranged with the mortgage company, without telling my wife, to make a reduced payment on the mortgage to free up a bit of cash for Christmas. The bank said that this would be fine, but then sent a letter a month later stating that we were in arrears. And the wife hit the roof. Understandably, I suppose, as I'd lied about it and tried to blame the bank and said I'd sort it, but she'd already spoken to them and knew exactly what I had done. As background, my wife has a very low stress threshold, and regularly has bouts of nastiness, especially during the time of the month. I'm forever getting blamed for things out of my control. And if things don't go right, she can start to rage at me. This happens quite regularly, and it's very draining. So by default, I usually take the path of least resistance. Currently, we are just about getting by month to month. Any wages she receives are a bonus at the moment, but recently, things have been getting tight. She's always asking me if we are okay for money. And not wanting to worry her, I just say we're fine. Bar a couple of late payments over the last year. We are, just about, keeping our heads above water. Recently, the bank balance has been getting low, and the upshot is that there wasn't enough money to make a payment recently. So rather than worry my wife, I told her we were fine for cash, and I contacted a friend and asked him to lend me some cash until I get paid next month. My wife found the text on my phone and hit the roof, saying I'd eroded all trust, again, and she wants me gone. I've been sleeping on the couch for the last 3 nights, as I don't want to spend any time I don't have to away from my kids. Basically, she resents me for lying to her. Says I don't support her emotionally or physically, and I'm not the man she married anymore. I tried to reason and say that I only did it to avoid another argument and to not worry her. But she wasn't having any of it. Basically, is there any way back for us? I don't want to lose everything we've worked hard for over the years. I don't want to lose out on seeing my kids, and I don't want to lose my wife, as despite everything, I love her very much. Few months later. Okay, so a bit of a follow-up. We sat down and went through our joint finances, incomings, outgoings, spending, etc., and we were just scraping by each month, living hand to mouth, payday to payday. We discussed various options, debt management plans, IVAs, and we decided to enroll her in an IVA. As most of the debts are in her name, this recently was agreed and went through, and we are due to make the first payment this month. I thought things were looking up. We'd have a bit spare cash to enjoy ourselves, and maybe actually have money left over at the end of the month. Until yesterday, when out of the blue I get a text message stating that she's fed up with me letting her down, lying about money, and then brought all sorts of past arguments and behaviors into it. Don't compliment her, don't show her affection, don't support her emotionally. Works both ways, that does though. Blaming me for her having to go into the IVA when in reality, it was joint decisions to take out the credit. And at the time, she was employed as well as self-employed, and we had the cash to pay it. I'm currently back at my parents' house, as of last night, as I can't be in the same house as her as it's descending deeper and deeper into arguments. I've suggested marriage counseling, but she seems resistant, and no matter what I say, I think she's given up on our marriage, which is devastating. The mental thing is, if she thought our finances were bad before, they're going to be 10 times worse now. We'd have to sell the house, pay off the IVA with the equity, and then split whatever is left, which won't be much. So, getting a new place to live, with room for my 3 kids, would be nigh on impossible. I already have a small house which I rent out to her dad and his fiancée, so I'd have to effectively evict them in order to move back in, which would only make matters worse. I'm still hopeful that I can rescue my marriage, but these hopes are fading fast, and that's when the world of hurt really starts. After a couple months, my wife and I separated, her decision, just after New Year. I've been on here previously regarding my relationship with my wife and the problems we've had. Anyway, that came to head and I was asked to leave just after New Year. So, I've been trying to reconcile. We have 3 young kids, and despite our problems, I love my wife. However, she's been reluctant to engage in any sort of discussions about getting back together, refusing marriage counseling. Anyway, I know she's been messaging a guy she used to work with years back, who she coincidentally met again on New Year's Eve while I was at home looking after the children. She said they were just friends, and I believed her. I've since found out that while I had 2 of my 3 kids over to stay at my sister's, I'm currently living back with my parents, but there's no room for me to have the kids. She had this other bloke round to my house, which I still pay the mortgage for, in full, along with utilities, etc., and lied about it. I only found out when I found a load of beer bottles in the recycling bin and confronted her about it. She basically said I was being paranoid, and they were just friends. This has been going on for about 2 months now, with me wondering where she is going, and who she is going with whenever I go round to see the kids and she goes out. Most of the time, I can corroborate where she is going, but when I'm not there, is he coming round? I don't know. Last night, she was ordering stuff on Amazon via her phone, and it needed me to sign in. As I was doing that, a message popped up from this other bloke, stupidly. I read it, and others that they'd sent to each other. And it was basically, in a shortened version, about how he loved her naked body, and her replying about him having it any time he wanted, and other stuff that made me feel physically sick to read. I confronted her about it, again, and she said it was just flirting. I've been out of the dating game for a while now, but that, to me, doesn't seem like flirting. That seems like an affair. She still swears blind that she hasn't even kissed him, but I find this increasingly hard to believe, especially after reading what I read last night. It's starting to consume my every waking thought. The thought of someone else being intimate with the woman I still love tears me apart. Even the thought of her texting some of the things she wrote makes me feel ill. I just don't see how I can ever get away from it. I'm still there most evenings to see the kids, and I have them weekends while she works, so I feel as though I can't escape this. No matter how much I want to, part of me wants to get out there and start picking up women to get revenge, but I'm not in the right place in my head for that. And I still have too much respect for myself, and strangely her, to even contemplate seeing someone else while I'm still married, even though she clearly has no such respect for me. I'm currently stuck in a cycle of self-loathing and have completely lost my confidence and self-esteem, and I just can't see a way out of it. Is there a way out of feeling like this? I know for a fact she only reconnected with him at New Year. We have had our problems before he came along, but I can't help but think that having him there in the background has made her mind up, so to speak. She claims we broke up because we no longer made each other happy, which is, I suppose, partially true. We were starting to argue much more, but it seems to be all about the things I didn't do, rather than her admitting any blame in the marriage breakdown. Regardless of the reasons why we split up, I just find it a real kick in the teeth that she can be so quick to move on to someone else, and then to lie about it to my face. 1 year later, we separated just after New Year. 6 weeks later, she was seeing someone else, and lied about it to me, as at that time I was seeking a reconciliation. I was devastated, and we agreed to divorce, although I left it up to her to file against me. Anyway, the divorce process has been going along amicably, as we have 3 young kids, so we've kept it civil and friendly. We've had the final court letter to say she can now apply for the decree absolute, which she hasn't yet done. Last week, I received a message from her saying that she thinks she's made a mistake, and that we should talk about slowly reconnecting, and that she still loves me. The bloke she was seeing is no longer in the picture. After he realized that he didn't want to be a stepdad to my kids, luckily, he realized this before he was introduced to them. During this 15-month separation, I've abstained from dating and meeting new people. Not out of hope of reconciliation, but out of respect for myself. my marriage vows, and the fact that I swore to myself that while I was still married, I wouldn't until the divorce was final. Now that she has realized, or thinks she has realized, that the marriage may be worth fighting for, I'm not sure if I can forgive or forget the fact that she's been with other people during our separation. We've agreed to talk about things and to take things slowly. I'm not going to move back in. I'm not going to declare my undying love straight away. It's going to take a lot of hard work and honesty from both of us. And even then, it's not a promise to rekindle our marriage. It's just an option to try and see if doing so is the right thing to do. We won't tell the kids, we'll just go on dates and see where we go. I suppose what I'm asking, if I'm actually asking anything at all, is should I just agree that this is a new start, and to put the fling she had with someone else behind us? I expect we'll be better off going to marriage counseling to get to the bottom of all this. And feelings, etc. Things will have to change anyway, as going back to how it was isn't an option. I suppose this is a chance to make a fresh start, with, hopefully, less money worries now that we're financially completely separated. With the exception of the marital home which I still retain a share in, although don't contribute to the mortgage currently whilst paying child maintenance. Maybe this is my sign to move on. What you guys think? Story 2. I'm here to ask for some advice due to the fact I feel I've run out of options. Short summary, my husband lies to me constantly, about everything no matter how large or small. The problem I'd like to bring up, however, is that it seems he cannot be faithful to our marriage. It started about 2 years ago. I found out he had been looking at other women every chance he got. That was bad enough to me because I watched it tear my parents apart. That wasn't the end. Shortly thereafter I found out he was visiting dating sites. Although he claimed he hadn't contacted anyone, I found out that was a huge lie. He was on so many dating sites and talked to so many women I couldn't tell you the number if I wanted to. Then he began to pay for the dating sites instead of sticking with the free ones. Later on, he started giving these women his phone number, sending pictures, etc. He has a bad habit of going to the store and staying gone for 12 plus hours. I caught him at the bar waiting to meet someone there. He left last November to go for a ride, and I didn't see him again for a week. I had no idea where he was, no contact at all. So that being said, it seems to me none of it has stopped, including the lying. Honestly, it just tears me apart even to find him looking at women online, even if it's just pictures. I've told him how it bothered me. A long time ago, I told him why it was a problem. It doesn't seem to help. I've tried being patient, I've tried being more physical, and even trying things I will never be comfortable with. I don't know what to do. I want to save my marriage, but at this rate, with the infidelity and deceit, I don't think it looks too good. I think it's also important to say, I want nothing from him I cannot give back. I'm completely faithful, and happy to be. Can anyone help me? I have considered leaving, but that is really a very last resort. If I can save my marriage at all, that's what I really want. We have been married for a year and a half. We do have a son together, he's 2 months. I do not work outside my home. He and I agreed on that when we first moved in together. I do love him, I'm just falling apart because of all this. I've never dealt with such deceit in all my life. Never thought this was the way you acted when you love someone. I've tried talking to him about it. I've asked him if this wasn't what he wanted. I've given him easy opportunities to walk away. That isn't what I want, but I felt like I had to make it known that I wasn't going to try to stop him from going. I know the logical thing to do is walk away. I just want to know if there is more I can do, if there is something out there to save what we have left. First of all, I am quite aware that my marriage is unhealthy. I didn't come here to validate that. I do love my husband, and in my opinion we all come to a point sometime in our lives that a little advice may do us some good. But it's not always something we can feel comfortable talking with friends or loved ones about because we don't want to expose our spouse and private things in our marriage. That's why I'm here in an online marriage forum where my husband's identity as well as my own is completely anonymous. I also hardly consider it bashing when only facts were stated. If you feel that way about it, maybe you should stop giving advice on a marriage forum. It is here for people who have trouble in their marriage, therefore negative things will be stated. I don't know what your definition of love is, but you don't have to be perfect to be loved. Obviously, you've never found yourself in a situation like mine because you do not understand how any of it feels. You don't know the desperation you feel when you've tried everything you know to try. When you've given all you know to give and nothing gets better. Yet you are in love with this person. You look back and see mistakes, but you didn't know then what you know now. I asked him to go to counseling back in the beginning of December. He said yes but would never go. We don't attend church, but I've attempted to contact several Christian ministries I found online, but they didn't have much advice. I do have 2 children, but my oldest is not from this marriage. Having the second child wasn't planned, but I love my kids and wouldn't change it for anything. As far as when he leaves for that long, he says he's just writing, that he wasn't ready to come home yet. Or like the last time he told me he sat down by the creek. That time he was gone over 16 hours. When he left for a week, he said he stayed at a hotel all week and was sick, but wouldn't say why he wasn't answering my calls or talking to me, period. And yes, when he disappeared for a week, I was 5 months pregnant. I don't understand it either. He says he loves me, says he wants this marriage, but a lot of the time it doesn't feel like it. I know most of it rings true. I do believe I have a tough road ahead. It's hard to walk away from someone you love, but I can't live like this because what I shared here isn't even half. My comment. Anyone got some advice for OP? She just needs some advice, and I think it's harder for a woman to walk away from a marriage than men. You agree? Comment down below and let's keep helping each other out.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie. making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.